Well,
It is. There it goes. This Hangout on Air is live, so here we are. Hey, everybody. Nice big group this month. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Got some new people.
Scott Franklin.
Yes, I know. Scott Franklin. Are you, like, is this a regular thing? You're doing Mac stuff now?
I've been doing Mac since the Lisa, really. And for the last couple of years, I've been out of it. I've had to work with PCs most of the time, and my skills have gotten rusty, and I figured I'd come back and speak to people who do it more than professionally, and that's you guys. And I would just, basically absorb some wisdom.
Fantastic. And
Hi, Lisa. It's my first time here. Been meaning to come for a while, but just never had time or got around to it. We're integrating a lot with Google Apps, and so I wanted to come and see how you guys do it in-house and just meet other people here. Thank you for having me.
oh, please, our pleasure. So I presume the thing that we all want to bust out talking about this month right away is WWDC, Apple's big yearly announcements with everything. So I'll let everyone else drive. Thoughts, go. What are you excited about, if anything? There were a lot of announcements, I thought.
System integrity protection.
That's exciting. I think it's exciting. And it's a step in the right direction. I think it's, as usual, right after one of these events, there's a lot of misinformation. There's as much misinformation going around as actual information, and some people think it's going to solve everything.
I've mostly just been reading about it, but it sounds like they're basically setting up a list of files that no one can touch but Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain directories that developers have been putting stuff in that, whether that's been good practice or not, Apple finally said you can't do this anymore, and it's just broken a lot of different software out there, which, over time, once it releases, they'll hopefully make compatible. But for developers, apparently it's affecting them putting in binaries and other plugins for, in certain folders that you typically wouldn't access. So those are not protected too.
Yeah, I think in general right now, if it breaks someone's software, they were kind of going against recommendations already anyway.
Right.
Software that's broken by this, in general.
Because just some of it, though, is getting around to do specific deployments, too.
Like what? I'd love to hear what people are using, or what people are dropping in those now protected directories that...
There's only
to all the directories yet, but
there's only
that was
two,
my
so there are only two, right?
There is.
It's /system,
Mhm.
which Apple has forever said, don't touch things in /system, right? Now,
I touched the template.
yes, that's one case, and I know Rich Trouton had tested that, and he said, well, so the other thing, to digress, is that SIP, I guess we can call it, System Integrity Protection, only protects the boot volume on a running machine. So it doesn't stop anyone from target disk moding a machine and changing any of the files. So I know Rich Trouton had tested target disk moding a machine, changing the template, booting it back up, creating a new user, and it happily takes that template and applies to it. So that is one case. We actually have another case internally where we filed a bug with Apple ages ago, like, hey, how do you do this thing? And their official answer is like, oh yeah, you touch this plist and it's in the system, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we have to file a bug with them and say, so how do we do it now if we're not supposed to touch that plist?
One of the transcripts that you made of his different sessions /notes, Rich Trouton, was for the desktop picture. And I'm kind of like, desktop picture? Like, really? You want to modify system's desktop picture? That's fine. That's adorable. And they said in the session that yes, file a bug against that. That we overlooked allowing that.
Yeah. Like it's a developer duty. If there's any things that the user template, file a radar. Even if someone else has already filed the radar, also file a radar.
right.
Yeah,
It's American Idol. We need to vote on these things.
pretty much.
The other one because that's one which I was hoping that I would not have to touch the desktop because I think it's
Silly.
It's a
But it's also
silly
like
thing,
you can
but
manage
whatever.
it
I'm not. I
through
implement.
efficient
I don't
mode.
make calls, right? I implement.
Can that be
You can push that
can
with-
that be modified by profile
Yeah.
or not yet?
It can do. You can do it via profile, but it.
The desktop picture.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't see the need to go touch the template. No,
There's
it's not something I do.
You can
so-
continue.
well, there are gotchas to it, but
Okay.
whatever. The desktop was one concern, and the other one for me was a dock. Now you can also do profiles
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the dock too, but
That's
there are also
messy.
gotchas,
Yeah.
with that too. And so I haven't tested it. I don't know if the dock app is also protected. I'm guessing it probably is, but
Yeah.
it is. Okay.
Well, the doc app. I don't know about the.
Well, but that's where you would get,
Yeah.
so
You would do it the, some would say, more expedient way versus using DocUtil with a login item and waiting 12 seconds for it to kick in, or
But
however long it
for
takes.
what we know now. So first off, SIP can be turned off currently. Like it can
Right.
be flat out
so that's only right now though.
Yes, right now, and again, I'm not recommending.
That's not that's
I'm not recommending.
not a deployable solution.
Right.
You have to
That's an
go in.
NG that haven't changed.
Yeah.
No. They said they're coming out with a command line tool that will let you disable.
Oh, I thought it was the opposite. I thought they said that in the
Yeah.
future this is going to go away. Don't rely on doing this.
They said don't rely on the NVRAM option, from what I remember.
All right.
Okay.
And eventually, but anyway, no, you don't want to turn it off. I'm not saying that's a recommendation. But the thing that you could do, knowing what we know now, and things might change through the seeds, is when you build your image, again, if it's not the running system, you can just
play.
go touch stuff on the disk before it ever boots up.
And the installation environment supposedly is whitelisted to be able
Yes.
to
So
do.
that's one way to go drop a bunch of stuff on disk without.
You would have to target disk mode it or like netboot it is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
or if you're building your image, you have a package that just goes off and touches a bunch of stuff on disk the way you want it.
Okay. So here's a problem. I don't know if this would be allowed though, but if the OS that you're connecting that Mac to is also running 1011, would that also be allowed? Like with my Mac, if this was running 1011 and I connected to that Mac that's also running 1011, would it pick up, hey, this is running the same OS, these files are protected? It wouldn't treat it that way.
I know.
It was I think so their assertion is that this is to prevent some process that you authenticated with your username password
While it's
didn't
running.
realize doing stuff to your running system.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's not really to prevent you. So,
You discussed it, you will always find it when you're done.
Right.
Is everybody still imaging or using DAP or intend to do DAP?
So that's actually that you bring it up. That was the other. For me, the other big announcement was DEP. Because one of the major complaints I've always had was you have to log in as a local admin account, and for different organizations that might be okay. For others, maybe not. And
You have to log in to accomplish what?
So basically, you get the computer on the network, on internet connection, it connects to your MDM, but as you're going through a setup assistant, that process creates a local admin account. That's from what my understanding is. And Apple just, from what I've been hearing and reading, said they're going to have a process in place where you can now create either a standard account or have the account deleted altogether. And I don't know, the finer details about that, but for organizations that are using DP or were considering it, maybe these sort of changes might make it more of a viable solution.
But could you perhaps demote the user to a standard user?
I mean, there are
after it's enrolled?
Well, there are workarounds. You can script stuff like that, but it seems like a bigger hassle. I personally feel like that should have been there from the beginning, but not everything always is there on version 1.0.
And the stuff that they announce at WWDC doesn't necessarily always ship. But
Right.
They said that DEP was in 10.10 and working, and I have not seen it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work with some MDMs and works, period. the fact that they're saying that they're endorsing hidden admins is weird. It's bizarre.
No, it's not a hidden
Who
admin.
said this and where?
So in the session, they demoed a profile that specifically had a checkbox, and no, I haven't spun up the VM, so I haven't seen with my own eyes whether or not it's actually in the seed. Who knows? That you, from Profile Manager, the not necessarily canonical, but the proof of concept, the MDM, you can generate a profile that will create a admin user. And as you are going through the DEP, okay, I'm forced to go into a MDM during the setup assistant, it will push that admin to the machine that there is a hidden account. And it will ensure that AD users, assuming that you're on network to be able to bind to AD or stuff like that, or whatever domain you're using, or even a local user is what they demoed, because imagine that, they're going to demo local users. Even though they had set up a OD instance as part of the demo as well. The user can only get standard, but there's a hidden admin on the machine that even when that hidden admin unlocks the syspref pane, you don't see the user. Now, I've had it be in 10.10 that admin users are not visible to standard user accounts in sysprefs until you unlock the pane, and then you do see users on the system. But I've not really been big about hidden admins, but now it's an endorsed, here's a way to go ahead and do it. That makes it interesting to me. Dollars to donuts, if you then file vault that machine, and you enable that hidden admin for a file vault, they're going to show up in the FI. So how hidden is that?
Maybe it'll show up.
Maybe, but
that's a big question to me. I gotta actually kick the tires on it. But
I'm not 100% sure that.
They have a pretty good story now for DEPing Macs with the addition of that functionality of you don't need to log in at all. I don't need to log in at all when I bootstrap a machine now because I'm running the enrollment package as part of Monkey's bootstrap. That it checks in and the JSS admin user that gets created with its random password just happens. I don't need to worry about that. But it brings to mind other things that I want to optimize about our entire standard operating environment and deployment procedure. Because we are still imaging. We're not thin imaging yet, mostly because Office is still 2 gigs. And waiting for 2 gigs of an install is not my idea of a good time.
You don't have to put everything. You know this. You don't have to put everything you're rolling out on your image.
It's expediency's sake and consistency's sake and migration's sake because we have enough dirty machines that we're ingesting. And it's also testing's sake. It's the fact that
within imaging, you're just getting a...
Pardon me,
it's just like buying a vanilla machine. And then
yeah, no imaging and throwing packages on top of it and target disk or whichever.
That's how we create them. I haven't used the so I'm not sure if that's more designed for I have a vanilla machine and then magic happens to run a vanilla machine.
I've seen more and more people saying, just take a vanilla machine and get your bootstrap on the vanilla machine.
Yeah, and I mean, we've discussed that internally.
That's never happening here, but I understand the appeal of that.
Yeah, no, I don't like I understand.
Wait, so
it seems convenient, but then you're trusting that the machine, that the bits on the disk are valid.
What about
Perhaps many people
unaltered on the way?
Less concerned about, but they are somewhat concerned about things like that.
well, what about having the user check out whatever piece of software they need from
self-service?
Yeah.
Self-service.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
But
We don't put,
I remember you used to back in the day.
We don't put big things on the engine.
right, to answer your point, it's like it's a constant balance for us of like, where's the optimal point to like, what can you put on disk initially that just comes down with the image, and what do you just load up later?
We will probably we'll have more of an option to move to thinner imaging because right now it's we're at like 12 gigs. It's still it's very chunky, and we pulled out all the printer drivers and stuff. But when 2016 becomes more modular, that everything's a separate install of the Office suite, but we're bread and butter of Office. So.
Yep, understandable.
I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, you just raised another point. You mentioned that your admin account is enabled for file load. So you enable both the admin and the user
No.
file load? I was just wondering about your PS square.
No, so like we wanted it to be a very self-service thing, and I still need to expand the Crypt client to allow a good interface to file vault escrow, because Apple in 10.10, one revision, you'll log in at the login window for the first time as an AD user, and you'll be added to file vault. Standard user, you're added to file vault. That's what I kind of want. I want them to be able to restart the machine and get in, not get enabled like it is now in 10.10.3 randomly.
For
So like
those who don't know, Crypt.
So Graham Gilbert made Crypt server, made Crypt client. It's essentially, he borrowed most of the aspects of Cauliflower Vest's login hook to actually make the kickoff happen. And it's therefore, when I have the recovery key escrowed, I don't need my local admin to be enabled for follow. So they're enabled, and that's that. Problem is that we have shared usage model where literally there's 12 people enabled for vault right now.
Why? Just out of curiosity, why is that? Because that's something that comes up here.
The department has grounds, and literally
this is medical.
Yeah,
medical. I forgot about that.
They take the 11-inch MacBook Air and they run statistical applications and lots of fun stuff.
So for residences that they don't have enough money and they're gonna be swapping in and out,
they have specific rounds.
Doing the same thing here for like reception desks. You know?
Also,
someone to have to show up with their own laptop, or you don't want multiple machines, right? But
also in our marketing department, we have a lot of freelancers, so they use shared model for freelancers.
That makes sense. I think the answer here increasingly has become just get the Chromebox.
Yeah.
That's
simple one.
Largely the answer, which that works great.
It's there, it's secured, it's what they need. But we're wanting to move to being able to enable everybody's file vault on logins, and that's just very minor tweaks to Crypt that I haven't gone around to yet. Okay. We just finally got it on curl so that it actually verifies that the HTTPS site it's talking to is the
that's
site.
A good idea.
Yeah, but like Graham pushed that a while ago. I just need to grab our version.
All right, so someone school me. I'm going to ask something that I know virtually nothing about. I know they announced Configurator 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a thing? Is it a good thing? Is it do people use it? Is that the right way to deploy? No one cares.
When I was traveling the earth, like came from Kung Fu, teaching people about Apple Configurator for Apple, I got to be very familiar with it as a product. And there's not much changed about the story except the fact that they did rip a lot of it down and put it back up. And they made it more IPCU-like, iPhone configuration utility-like, which was a nicer, more, which is like a smart move. Use the same code, put a different skin on it that looks like the old thing they were more comfortable with, profit. But they decoupled some of the iTunes needs of it. They added an automator scripting library, which the world yawned, but they demoed. And it's the same functionality as Apple Configurator 1 with scripting.
Really?
And that's like, okay.
So what's the story? You use Configurator if you've got like 10 devices, and then past that you need a bigger solution or something?
It's weird with DEP. DEP happened way after Apple Configurator. So the point was, I need to get this into a state where I've established that I own the device. And that's, I'm going to wipe it. Sight unseen, like I must wipe, do not pass go, do not collect $200 to use it with specific versions, with specific features of Apple Configurator. And then you have what's called a supervision environment, and a supervision relationship with the device. You can add different types of management that you would only need if you're a school with a lab or other types of shared models that you want to refresh the device on a regular basis. And you want to lock out certain things, like you don't want them to add their Facebook and Twitter.
Can you not do that with?
You cannot, with the management framework, you cannot stop people from adding accounts to Twitter or Facebook. You can lock
MDM,
certain things.
Like if I had AirWatch or Mobile Iron.
You can, like, you don't have the granularity at the very least. You can say, hey, no to settings, but other than that, you don't have the same amount of, I want to stop them from adding email accounts or things like that.
I didn't realize that.
Okay. So there's a bunch that Apple Configurator gave you before DEP. Now we were in this netherworld until Apple Configurator 2 is coming out, where they didn't recognize that you might still want to use Apple Configurator to prepare the device before it hits MDM, or to streamline your enrollment to MDM. Whereas if you take it out of the box and you want it DEP'd, because if it gets stolen, you want it forced into your MDM, you weren't allowed to use Apple Configurator at all. So there was this weird push-pull that educational environments in particular, and carts in particular, couldn't
I
do.
remember people talking about that. I mean, I'm not in an educational environment, and I haven't gotten too deeply involved with having to manage iOS, so that's why I'm asking.
Like the biggest thing, the announcement for everyone iOS related was now you can assign an app to a device, period. No Apple ID,
Yeah.
do not pass
nice.
go.
Yeah.
Wonderfulness and the fact that you now have to be more legit with your app licensing, but you can at least have this environment where
When you say legit, you mean you have to track it yourself.
it used to be per Apple ID.
No,
That-
You don't have to apply
Yes.
the same Apple ID to more than 10, which is...
Huh.
They say you can only apply it to more than up to 10 devices,
That doesn't keep very good track.
but it's very hard to manage.
Gotcha.
Thousands of devices
Yeah.
or hundreds of devices that are shared with multiple Apple IDs.
Got it.
So it's big news.
So back on the Mac front, we all tried a 1011 install or upgrade?
No.
Not yet.
I have
I haven't had it yet.
I have iOS 9, but I
I have iOS 9 as well, which has been fine on the iPad. I've been a chicken on my phone because people have been saying on the phone, like, the battery life has been awful. So,
Yes. Well,
okay,
battery life
so-
on this has been awful.
Really?
Yes, in my bag from
The battery life
30% last
has been
night.
fine on
died.
my iPad with iOS 9. That's been okay.
Maybe I needed to reboot once.
I don't
but
know.
It died once,
But
and
it's been okay.
Well, that was,
I know with a lot of the earlier OSs, that was one thing they had to fix on when I worked at Apple, on every phone. The new OS came out and
Had to be better.
battery was horrible, and they had to rewrite
Yeah.
something because something was draining it.
Huh. It's been okay so far. But on the 1011 front, I think like Apple has me excited again because 1011 actually like is working nicely. Like Yosemite was such a disaster that maybe it could only get better. But you know, I'm happy to have them like focusing on
set this.
The cool thing is they didn't drop products. Like you can't.
hardware.
Yeah,
Still,
the hardware. What works on Yosemite works on LCAP now.
yeah.
So I mean that
Okay,
was.
all right. Let's talk about the name and then not talk about it anymore.
I'm going to be climbing that this summer. So
Really?
Yeah.
That's exciting. But I guess, you know, I immediately was like, oh, it's a stupid name. But I guess I thought all of them have been kind of stupid. Like, all the California names have been like Mavericks.
now they're just going to maybe stick
I
with mountains and go to Everest.
And then Yosemite is like, oh, it's kind of a dumb name. I guess I'll get used to it, but it's still.
Teammate Jeff pointed out the Capitan is mountain inside of Yosemite.
Yes.
This is clearly like
Yeah.
an update to
Mountain
Yosemite.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the snow Yosemite.
next one will be Super Volcano.
So no, I'm happy and I get the significance of the name. It's just El Capitan. I can't. I'm just gonna call it 10.
I like
So-
that he actually through the presentation picked on himself and Apple throughout the things of like
don't think
when
that was
an
exaggerated.
improvement came up. You know that he was like, yeah, everyone told us that we should improve this. I'm trying to remember which ones
That's a
they were.
long time, like Apple pattern, like people getting really excited over like shit that should have been fixed years ago, right? Like,
Well,
or they
like-
should a feature that should have been added a long time
He
ago.
called
But
it out himself, like the
Yes.
spotlight being able to resize. Oh, that's
Yeah.
innovation right there. Right?
Yeah, no,
that
I
was
thought I
the,
love
like,
those comments.
this
hallmark
was one
one.
of the first keynotes that I thought that they were
Took
a
himself
little
down a notch.
Window
self-
snapping?
deprecating.
I've been so used to that on Windows.
On Windows, yeah, clearly, right.
We get a lot of requests for that from people.
And
And
I
we
don't,
have the
I don't have
third-party
to
app
rely
store.
on external third-party tools now to like actually resize Windows or snap them.
Full screen with 2 apps.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
run that now with 2 cables to my monitor.
Yeah.
Huge, man.
No, I'm happy about that. Like, I think, I think for us, right, like Yosemite was kind of a tough sell for us. Like, we want people to upgrade because of, we know Apple's only focusing on the latest, and that's what's going to get security updates. And like, so now we have to try to tell everyone, like, hey, upgrade to this latest OS. And we want them to do it on their own. And we don't want to say, you're being forced into this. We want people to go, yeah, it's a good reason for me to go upgrade.
Yeah.
And most of the releases had something we could kind of tell people about.
With Yosemite, though, you had handoff.
No, Yosemite was, for us, we were like, well, everyone hates the way it looks. Like, we didn't really have a story to like tell, but I think this will be
security fixes, but I don't care about that.
Yeah, that's not an
stable. It was terrible. Other than more security.
Speaking of, with again, I haven't ran it, but with 1011, are they back to Discovery D? Or?
No. So I had 2 Apple employees tell me when I was in San Francisco last week that Discovery D is dead, dead, dead. Never to come back again from the grave.
Did they give any other backstory to that or nothing? Well, can you?
The backstory is apparent from the outside.
Yeah.
Well,
the backstory is it didn't. So I,
subsystem and ignore all the bugs that you don't think that they were trying to replace.
Again, like, these were 2 different Apple employees who didn't work on the product, who didn't work on Discovery D directly.
Wow.
But they basically told me the same story over dinner one night, so it's not my place to
No,
eat
okay,
it
that's fine.
necessarily, but they both sort of said, like, yeah, that thing's never coming back.
Man, that sucks. We worked on that project.
You know what? Yeah, it kind of does, but at the same time, I'm glad they're
able to
recognized the
admit.
product and said the problem, and then just say, like, look, we gotta get this working again.
All right.
So
Well, that's
that
good.
was-
That's encouraging.
yeah, I
It was somewhat bold to sort of roll back to the old name, not just
Yeah.
sort of like just replace the
Discovery D
binary.
Mark II.
Right. Discovery D suddenly has the same, hash as the old.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was good to see. What else? Oh, so some people with 1011 have noticed there's a trim force command. Does anyone care about this, or does this affect anyone? So for those who don't know, the trim commands on SSD drives, people in the OS X community have made a big deal about this for a long time, and I don't understand why. Because Apple has warned people about this for a long time. Like, if you enable trim, we don't support it, and you're going to lose data. And people are like, I got to enable trim. It's the best thing ever.
It's performance.
So now in 1011,
I think it's sort of like,
Well,
I think so, but now,
Which is also gone.
so now in 1011, there's a command called trim force, which will force trim commands to go to SSD, external third-party SSD drives. However, the man page is like, yeah, don't do it. Really, like the man page is like a dire warning, do not do it. But I've still seen people on mailing lists like, the trim support is coming in 1011.
Yeah.
I don't understand people's fascination with it, especially when Apple is so, like, clearly warning you off of it on their platform.
well, 2 questions. First of all, don't they use it on their own products? In some fashion, they use trim? Because it's garbage collection and wear leveling.
So
You figure that's a good
I
idea.
don't know if they do. I think Apple does a lot of little trickery, right? Like, they put their own firmware. They've put their own firmware on drives for years, and now with Flash, I think they have a lot to do with the controller. So like, trim can leak data on encrypted drives. So I think Apple's very careful in what they do, writing to their disks.
Well, that's
I
good.
think a lot of times when Apple says don't do this thing that
Yeah, that's true.
everyone does on Linux or everyone
Or
does
Windows,
or Windows, it's because they've implemented the exact same thing their own special way, and if you do the other thing, you're gonna step on their feet.
Well, I'm using the trim text reassigner / enabler / whatever you want to call it. And
Stop.
now, huh?
Yeah, stop.
Stop that. Is it that bad?
If you haven't lost data, I guess.
To date?
Have good backups.
That's not that he's found.
Yeah, have good backups.
Not that I can remember.
Well, and all the paychecks turning different, 5 cents instead of. But I've been using it, and now with text signing,
Mm-hmm. Right.
changing the firmware is like, okay, when things go really wrong, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, Apple's also clearly on a mission to get rid of as many third-party kernel extensions as possible. That seems like pretty clear, I think. Just the requirement of getting a special signing certificate, developer certificate for kernel extensions, things like this with the KX, with the trim enabler that's now sort of semi-dead, right? Because
if they do it,
yeah.
But it's been obviously common, and a lot of the older machines have been refurbing with SSDs.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people also tend to fill their SSDs up. Instead of leaving, 25% free space and hoping that back portion that, you can't really see,
right.
But you can change if you have to. But people have a tendency of leaving that. They either don't know about it or they do know about it and they just go right up against it. Then everything starts slowing down.
Yeah.
There's no garbage collection.
I think it's just one of those things that people are used to from the Windows world. They've heard that it's a good thing. Like, why isn't this on OS 10? That's my.
I always thought that there was an OS 10, we do it our way version of it. Because according to the gentleman that makes the enabler, it modifies their enabler.
Yes, right.
On topic of storage, I remember seeing one of the slides at WWDC said they redesigned disk utility. Has anyone tested out or seen what
looks nicer? I've seen it. No, it does. It looks nicer, but I use the command line a bit more, I guess. I just fired it up because I heard so many people talking about it.
So that's actually, well, you kind of went into two things. I was interested in how different it looks and if they removed any functionality or added any functionality, and then in the command line, the same, if they added or removed.
I haven't.
You haven't gotten that?
Delved into it that deeply. I just fired it up, looked at it, and was like, okay, you know what it looks like? I'll pull it up here, but it reminds me of, as of 10.8 or so, they started copying, when you go into system or about this Mac, and they started copying the iOS thing where it tells you how much
the bar
space you're using for each type of file. Yep. That's what disk utility looks like now.
Yeah.
I would assume that the command line compliments are still all there. Like, I don't know why they would screw around with that.
That's what it looks like. It kind of looks like iOS.
Ooh,
basically.
It looks pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty. I don't know.
The question is this any different under the hood?
I don't know if it's more functional or less functional or anything.
It looks very similar.
It looks like iOS, right?
It
tells you how much space
and
is allocated for.
The basic things you can do are pretty much the same.
Are iOS-like, even though you don't have
although
a
it does, it does give you a little extra information when you select the individual disk.
You'd have to test it, but I don't see an option to burn.
Because it has optical drive.
No, exactly. But like, I'm wondering if someone needed to, in a crunch, connect the.
I think Finder still supports it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You could actually drop a disk in, and Finder will let you burn now.
Yeah.
I mean, it has not now. It always has, but I don't think you're going to do that from disk utility.
Yeah, it's not even an option under images,
the
images menu. So that's different completely. That's actually the only thing that's gone that I can tell.
It might still be there in terminal.
Maybe.
Yeah, if you need to burn a Joliet disk or something like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else was interesting from WDC that affects administrators. I know, so I built a 1011 image using Per Olofsson's auto damage, and it works fine.
He said, I forgot to say, it's fine.
Yeah,
he updated
he said it's
profiles.
fine. I've verified it's fine.
What about?
So I don't know how other people are building their images, but
well, that's one way, and then
nice.
Create the OS 10 install PKG.
Oh yeah,
they pushed an update.
Yeah.
Was it a major? No.
That's what we've been finding, I think, so far with 1011 is that it hasn't required major changes. This really is like the Snowsemite release.
So here's a question then. Are you building the images with those tools? I assume you still have to use the same OS to build the image.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
And it's working fine.
Yep.
Okay.
So from a 1011 machine, get the base image again, the installer and whatever packages, check them on there.
In terms of net boot or net install, has anyone tried that?
I have not yet. I think that's that's a bigger story here, I think.
I remember you kind of mentioned it last time.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, we'll have to deal with it eventually, but
just
haven't tested it yet.
I don't know if. Thanks.
Cool. So questions? Anybody struggling with their environments?
Well, I guess just more on the topic of security for 10.11. With Yosemite, there were all these big, issues where like big holes that were just discovered or publicized with what was it called? Root pipe.
Root pipe, and that was in 10.9 and not quite fixed with 10.
Right.
And then there were also a bunch of things that were hardware specific and not necessarily
like Thunderstrike,
Thunderstrike 2.
I can't get over the names.
I don't know what we're calling the new one where it doesn't come back from sleep correctly.
Thunderstrike 2.
Oh, wasn't that like the Dark Jedi something or other?
No, Dark Jedi is another one.
But anyways, I guess what I was trying to get at, now that they've gone with this SIP, does that kind of
help
mitigate or remove those issues that were
not all of them.
Yeah, not all of them. It's definitely
no, not the hardware issues, but the ones that were software or operating system.
It's a step in the right direction. It's another layer of defense. The problem with SIP is that people heard rootless and they're like, oh my god, root can't do anything, so awesome, I'm protected. No, root's still there. Root can still do a lot of damage. Root can still load and unload kernel extensions. So, if someone can get root on your machine through some other exploit, they can really overcome SIP pretty easily, I think. I think the issue that SIP solves are end users downloading some package that they think is good software, installing it being malware, and that malware getting persistence on the machine. That's the major case that it solves, like Genio or anything that tries to install into, system library launch agents or launch daemons that gets this long-term persistence on machines.
Which is most of the real world.
Yeah,
threat.
Absolutely.
The vast majority.
But it won't protect you against Apple's own bugs.
Nothing does.
Yeah, I mean, well, they don't need OS.
SIP wouldn't have helped for Heartbleed and the bash bug.
Right. No.
I mean, those are all,
Go to Fin.
Go to Fin. That was a good one. So, good times. I can only hope that Apple continues to get more security conscious, and I can.
Really, it's like one of the first major engineering decisions they made to really change how things work for security reasons. So they've done it a very long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of refreshing to see them actually take that stuff seriously.
Oh, 100% agreed. Yeah.
I mean, Gatekeeper and XProtect are recent, but the implementations are kind of naive.
Right. They're naive and very simplistic. Stop this from running on your machine if you know about it.
And because you downloaded it in this way.
Right.
Sure.
It doesn't change anything. I guess it changed. It does change if you're running Java plugin, so you have to worry about XProtect. That's not good. This is like a core. We're going to change the model of the operating system in some basic way. I guess you're experts. That's fair. That's fair to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If they keep adding these layers, I mean, it's a good step. I'm not convinced that this is a merger of iOS and macOS. They can both draw from each other, but people still kind of say like, "Oh, this is."
No, they're not. They're not doing what Microsoft's done.
I mean, it was great in how they've presented it, in my opinion, that they said, there's people that are developing kernel extensions. You're gonna have to be able to turn that off. Like, you need to operate on the full operating system. We're not stopping it from being a full operating system when it comes to access to those lower level parts of the system.
Yeah.
But the implementation was curious. Of course, I see Frogger's, Michael Lynn's tweets go by, and I'm kind of like, I should be thinking about that because that's intelligent. And he's talking about how from the recovery partition, the way that the tool works in the early ones, and they say it's going to go away, is this GUI tool that has the entitlements, the special entitlements, that it therefore can affect the boot drive. But I'm like, and I don't know how I'm supposed to start thinking about that. It's like such a, like the way that they piped, the way they were supposed to have patched. What vulnerability was it that they added entitlements and it broke?
Oh, right. That was pretty recent.
Yeah, it was not Open Directory D.
It was Open Directory, and you couldn't add a
create mobile account.
Yeah, create mobile account lost. They didn't do the create home folder part of create mobile accounts entitlement. They didn't get that in time for 10.10.3 going out, so we just have an easy workaround, and it doesn't break our workflow. But that was entitlement focused as well, and so I know I'm supposed to be thinking things about that. I don't know what to think yet.
Yeah, if you on a running 10.11 machine, if you go into the system folder and do ls-l capital O to show the flags, all those files just come up and say restricted. It's a restricted flag, which I haven't tried, but I'm assuming you just remove or something. The other thing I have noticed is that they're not using the code. Like, so Apple now code signs all these binaries, but the sandbox kernel extension that implements all this isn't looking at that at all. So you can target disk mode, you can change one of those binaries, boot back up, and it'll still have to run it. I mean, that might change in the future. That might change through the seeds. Again, this is the very first seed that they've dropped, and it's interesting to sort of poke around. But currently, it's just like, oh yeah, restricted? Sure, I'll run that.
I mean, but in Apple's defense, if you have direct access to the unencrypted volume, you all bets are off. You can place the kernel with something that does whatever the hell they want.
It was like Sam Keeley saying,
it would sure be nice if there was, I don't know, some sort of, TPM on the system.
Right, that they actually use.
Some trusted.
What a yarn. Who's going to come up with something like that besides Intel? But it was like Sam Keeley was talking about how he wanted to verify the file vault escrow key. So just put it in root's home folder and just check it every once in a while. And it's like, it's there on disk all the time. Wow. And he's like, why am I going to be worried about that? Who that has already gotten into root's home folder? If you've already gotten into, it's game over anyway.
Well, possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah. But yeah, that's trade it over the network. I guess. But
it's one of those things. Because I don't think var root is actually going to be covered by SIP anytime soon.
No. So far, it's system and
user, but not user
but
local.
Not user local, which is.
I haven't followed any people like looking at it, saying if other things are there. They said in the presentation it was all of system and user except user local, but I don't know.
I didn't even.
That wasn't the canonical list. It's probably something more complex than what they said.
I mean, this year it's more of the same with people just leaking like sieves of putting straight up slides on Twitter.
Yeah,
and
but all the presentations are public.
You don't need to log into the presentation.
You don't even need to log in.
They basically sort of obviated any sort of like.
There's no contractual agreement that people have been in.
Here last year about Yosemite.
Right?
Because half the stuff that
the NDA this year says no reviews or something like
just
you
journalists.
can publicly discuss it, but no reviews. I couldn't come out with a review of 10.11 right now. This thing's crap. Half of it doesn't work.
Does that affect the stock price or something?
It's a seed. You don't expect everything to work.
Well, yeah, but I could see like Mac
they
Rumors or one of
kind
those
of do
sites
that
doing like a review of the developer seed. So yeah, I think happily for me, at least, I think 10.11 is smooth sailing. I think, like, hopefully, like, we haven't run into too many bumps. I've upgraded a running machine already, and like, pretty much everything works.
Fixed a kernel bug.
They fixed one of the kernel bugs we had reported. You know,
Angry about that they're not.
yeah. Well, at least they're yearly releases now. And next major OS is never that far off.
But
Maybe
since Yosemite was so terrible, we're just now. Onto our fleet, so.
Yeah, this might be a short cycle for some people.
If they waited, it's basically we'll hopefully have El Cap.
Will deprecation notifier get beaten by El Capitan?
I don't. Well, we're using it right now
Yeah.
for 10.9 to 10.10.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll do the same thing too.
You guys don't use that for point releases, though, do you?
No. No, but we force those with.
Install by date.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Monkey is the word I was looking for.
Pardon
For
me.
monkey.
In
With install by date, we force.
we were totally going to do it
Do that with
slightly.
It's perhaps feasible, but I want to.
A whole 20 minutes of watching a progress bar and an OS update is wow. Like, I can understand that needing some preparation.
Well, we're happy to let people like, okay, before you go home, click this button and come back the next morning and it'll all be done. You know, we don't want to waste people's time, or before you go to lunch or something. We don't want people to have to sit and stare at a
Or that reboot is really expensive
computer. Yeah.
when you
Time is money.
spread
man.
it across.
We've had mechanisms in place that we remove so much. If they hadn't upgraded after a long time, we moved the machine every hour. And we had people live with that for a while.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
it's like, oh, is there any way? And then actually, one person actually, when we finally got a hold of them, they said, yeah, all right, we'll upgrade. But can you give me some sort of tool to reboot like that? Because it was a great, break to leave my desk for a while. And just
And now you can strap an Apple Watch up there.
Reminder for that.
I think
I'm like, there's easier solutions than just rebooting the machine for that. All right.
I think in general,
They
like
make alarms that
yes.
to remind you to get up
Yeah,
every
but
hour and walk
It's
around.
great for memory leaks, right?
Yeah. But it's like,
So just out of curiosity, because just a technical curiosity, you weren't doing anything else, just
No,
rebooting,
just rebooting.
just to annoy them, right?
Just to remind you.
This is like end of the line. Last people hadn't upgraded at all. We still had a mechanism. We did figured out a way around. We finally just.
That is a feature.
I just
That wasn't our
How many
first-
machines did you
Right.
have to do?
Right. I mean,
There was things leading up to that.
I think
Social engineering.
overall, like, us tech people that kind of know what's going on, we look at things very differently, and certain things
for them, it's just
like
a tool
bug
to
us, right? You see a badged icon, you're like, I gotta,
Yep.
do this update, or I gotta do this thing. I did a training last year for some external people, and we had a lab type room set up, and we had these Macs that were just imaged, and we put them out on the desk, and they were vanilla, stock images. So they all booted up, and I forget they got the notification center notification in the corner that said either that there were updates or like welcome to Mavericks or something.
Or
Show
you
me
want
more.
to
Check it out.
click
Here's some
on
tips.
auto update now.
Before I noticed it, all these people had come in and they sat down and they started working, and we gave them the demo account to log in with. And as I'm walking around the room, like 90% of the room just left that there. It's like, my tech OCD was kind of like,
I'm trying to tell you something.
they
Take it
leave it,
away.
and it's like a really good social experiment. Like my wife and kids with their iPhones, they never update anything.
That's so interesting.
Never.
you
Like
mentioned
these things
that.
get badged, and there's like 34 updates. I'm like, go, and they don't care. And it's a nice social experiment for me to see.
But-
like when do people go update? So I think the same thing. Like
Can't
But
really
there's
leave
a
it
lot
to
of
them.
fear with that too. I noticed not only
There's-
my mom but friends. And I look at their iOS device, whatever it happens to be, and I'm looking at this going, badge for OS update.
yes, there is fear in that. I understand.
8.0. Let me think.
I have to admit, the one that I was happy leaving was my mom, who always my mom loves science fiction. She's a big Star Trek fan, right? And
We
she
gotta
always
talk.
wanted to get into computers, but it was always, and I can understand it, like back in the day, PCs and DOS and everything, it just was a big turnoff to her. So I got her an iPad, when the iPads came out. Well, actually, she wound up with a 2. So, but So I started getting emails from her. She started using it. She loved the iPad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apple comes out with iOS 7. I'm like, I am not upgrading this thing because
I get so many calls.
Yeah, well, because it worked. She was happy with it. She knew where everything was. iOS 7 was a major change.
Yeah.
And only, I think this was like a month ago.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking, and my mom says, like, your father did something to my iPad. I'm like, oh, no.
Here it
I'm like,
comes.
did he upgrade it? Yeah, yeah. And my dad was like, I upgrade all my Macs. It's never a problem. I'm like, yeah, well, now it looks totally different, and I'm sorry.
No, my mom's
just gonna
like
have to
your
get used to
mom,
it.
but she's not afraid. She'll go and she'll take the MacBook Pro, or she'll wait until she hears from me and say,
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool. Just go ahead and do it. And she'll take care of it. And that's good. But her iOS devices,
Yeah, that's
she
what I'm saying. I
just lets
understand
it
the
sit
fear.
there. And she does. The badge isn't normally, you don't necessarily see the badge until they say you got to have it.
Yeah.
And then it pops up. And she'll still leave it
But
there.
I think the other thing is, we have all these statistics, like I hope most of us do, about the Macs that we manage. We have a whole page of reports of, if the management agents seem like they're broken or whatever. The one that's most fascinating to me is the free disk space report. You know how many people run with like 100K? I'm like, how are these people getting anything done? Right? Like, how do you do this? Like,
Because their swap files are already written onto the device.
but I know OS 10, one of the things it does, like, if you ever reboot,
It tells you. Oh, well, it clears up a
right,
lot
it
of.
clears, but then, like, none of your preferences will have saved. So, like, you come back, you're like, why didn't that save? Like, I don't understand. Like,
But you have to know that that's the reason.
right. So again, but people will live with it. That's what I don't
Yes, they
understand.
will.
We have plenty of resources here for people to go to and say, hey, my
Something's happening.
machine's not working.
Yeah.
It's not doing what I expect. Help me.
Because it's tiny.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yes.
an annoyance,
But that's
but
what I'm
it's not a
saying.
big enough mosquito
to
for you to
the-
really have to swat
To
it.
us in this
It's-
room, like, we'll try to get to the bottom of that. To
Yes.
most people, it's just like, yeah, whatever.
So
I
there
got
are
stuff
two
to do.
types of people I found that run into that situation where they get the first message and they're like, what's this? And they'll actually do something about it. And then there are the other people that get that message and they're like, okay,
Click past it.
past it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Engine
then
light.
when it gets to 0 and they're trying to download that file and they're like, I can't download my presentation. Why can't I do
Yeah.
it? And then it becomes an emergency. It's like, well,
Yes.
I'm getting told it's full. Like, because it's probably full.
Yeah.
Can you take a look at it? Like,
They're having a-
delete files from your computer. Your problem will go away. But I still have to go because,
I get lots of tickets about the beach ball.
Huh.
Once that starts popping up all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
that's when people get aggravated. I love people who have, like, I have this one lady who had her browser. You couldn't see the text because there were so many tabs.
Yeah.
Like, so many tabs. And she never shuts down her machine.
I've come to the conclusion. I've come up, speaking to that, I've come up with a new plan. It's just end of the day, I close my browser and that's it. Like, I lose those tabs.
Yeah.
Because I used to be like that, like a million tabs. I'm
I
like,
have
no, I'm
bookmarks.
gonna get back to that. You never get back to it. If I didn't really like deal with it right then and there, I'm never getting to it.
Oh,
So
what I
from
do-
now on,
He has a plugin. He saves all his gosh darn tabs.
no. I
Every time he
I used to, and I
Safari.
understand the desire for that. But you know what? If I need it, I'll just.
But that's
search
what history is
again. I'll
about.
find
You can
it.
always go get it again.
You can find it again. Like, I just.
And
Gotta
think
be
about
done.
what those caches have got to look like.
Yeah, done. Get
Have
rid
you
of
ever waited 10 minutes plus for a Firefox cache
it.
to clear? The script will time out and go, do you still want to continue? Yes. And then you see the number
Wow.
decrement by 15 gigabytes. I've seen it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've seen it.
That's pretty severe.
Yeah,
or isn't there like a limit that by default that's a lot lower than 10 gigs?
I wish. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, this
So
is
anyway.
this is going back a few years, like 3 or 4 years.
Questions.
I have a question.
Go.
What are people doing for end user backups? I've got to look at that.
Nothing.
Pretty much
Yeah.
already.
Nothing.
That's
Sorry,
not
I didn't hear that
I've
question.
been told that's not acceptable.
End user backups.
End user backup.
So
Okay, the last time I worked with AOL IT, their email, it was a company got acquired, and we had discussions with their IT, and we asked them about backups.
How long ago was this?
This was 2010,
Okay.
in 2011.
Before your time.
Uh, Yeah, so they're using Exchange, I'm pretty darn sure, and no, they weren't using Exchange. What the fuck was
It's probably web, but not now.
You had to manually move to a specific folder on the server, or your email didn't get backed up.
Oh, yeah, one of those.
Period.
Yeah.
And I was a little surprised.
But that's the lawyer's fault.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's probably a legal thing.
But for someone that they just acquired that does reporting, like
That's all. It's not.
we have retention policies that are separate for the C-levels and board members and stuff than everybody else.
Right, which are much more generous. They would like those people to delete much more often, but they're not allowed to because of the SOX requirement. Like, lawyers would be happy if your email got deleted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right when
Or
you
after
got
you were
it.
done looking at it.
Before you looked at it, so you can post later about it.
So to answer your question, well, I can't answer your question.
Well,
Like,
you
what are we
can.
doing? It's nothing.
So-
And the answer there is we looked into this at one point, and then someone very far up the food chain said, "We're Google. We're a cloud company. Store your stuff in the cloud."
Great. So
Like they want to treat this as a shell. You lose it, it stops working. You go get another one, you're right back to work.
Yeah. We
Whether
know how
that's a
many
great-
exabytes Google has, but gee, that's a lot of data.
So
Whether that's a good solution or not, and I think we talked about this in one of the more recent meetings, and I said, well, at home I'm using CrashPlan, and
Mhm.
that's a really nice solution. And I think a bunch of people said, like, not anymore. So I might not have the latest information on what's the
Last time
best.
we were looking into this,
It was CrashPlan.
what we're considering, and
Same thing Apple uses
I
right
say
now.
considering because it's not even in testing mode yet. We have Google Drive. We have unlimited storage, thank you kindly. Time Machine is already on all of the Macs. We could create a sparse image on people's Google Drives, hide it so that they don't know it's there, mount it somewhere, they don't see it in the Finder, so they don't know it's there. Put down a configuration profile that's going to use Time Machine to back up to that sparse image in the cloud. And we're trying to be cheap.
Yeah.
I'd much
MacGyver.
rather spend a whole lot of money and use an enterprise grade solution because that's the right thing to do, but
if you're not gonna do it
Yeah,
right,
just
don't
make
do
it
it at all.
broken.
Yeah.
Or these are all
Like-
hard links.
It's interesting.
When someone loses, like, when someone's computer goes bad and you find out later on, like, some of the stuff that they needed to back up wasn't backing up for whatever reason, you're gonna be the person that gets.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
feel I'm a long time like anti-time machine person. And that's just me
no, that's
personally.
okay.
And this might
open for suggestions
this might be very
because
dated
I'm real thrilled
information.
about it.
so
But I remember the first version of Time Machine, one of my big gripes was there was no way to get information on it, like programmatically. Sometimes it would switch itself off and it wouldn't tell you. So it wouldn't be backing up for a very long time until you found out, oh, hey, I need
Well,
to-
you looked at it and go, and you see that little
The
circle with
switch is
the eye, and
off.
it goes, well, you know what?
that might have gotten better. But
We
I
have
just,
extension attributes, we can report on that in Casper or you can use a TM util.
yeah, now you, well,
So that
yes.
bit we can sort of keep check on.
The thing that would concern
I
me,
appreciate, I totally want to keep this discussion going.
the thing that would concern me most is like, so by doing it that way, you got this big moving piece, which is Time Machine, and you also have that you're creating a sparse image on Google Drive to back up to. So from Google Drive's point of view, that's one file.
Right.
Well, no, but the sparse
No.
bundle one are a bunch
Yeah,
of little
that's
bands. and
4
that's
meg
better.
bands, right?
It's better,
It's
but
better.
it's, I mean, from Google Drive, I would actually be more inclined to do build something like that with Arson. Just copy the files.
But then we can't go back to a point in time, so then if
So
you
you
see
could.
the bad,
If you built it to do that, you could have it every day, create a new directory on the Google Drive,
Okay.
and copy over today's stuff,
And hard link it or something.
or something.
Like,
You could
like
do
Time
that.
Machine is kind
Right.
of already doing.
I think
Yeah.
I just really had a terrible experience.
Yeah,
I can think of the internal name. but
yeah, I know. Duplicity.
Does everybody get a copy of Carbon Copy Club?
Yeah.
So,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
there is an open source tool called Duplicity, which is basically a big wrapper around rsync and does all the right things. So that would, yeah, that would be something to look at. But I think the right answer came from over here, like Yeah, there are all these sort of hacky ways to do it, but
Start
especially when it
looking-
comes to backup, like do it right or just don't bother.
And if you're the person making that call, start looking for another job because
Yeah, someone's not going to force
you are going to be the person they're going to point to.
I've been in that situation. I've been in a situation where.
It's also something is better than nothing, which is the case
Right.
right
Well,
now.
So, but I think
but
the point
like-
you're trying to make is that with backup, sometimes nothing is better than something that doesn't work.
Right, because
And then
they start
don't have to-
relying on it, and
Right.
then when it's not there, it's kind of like, well, this is supposed to be working. You told me it would work.
So I think,
You
and
know?
again, this is another user education thing, or your user base better than I do. So, but you said you have Google Drive and you have unlimited storage. I think
Work out of
part of the
Google
answer
Drive.
would be like anything you want backed up, put it in Google Drive.
Right, if you get to the point where you can tell users.
If you can just
we're
tell
only back
users
in one
that,
folder.
right?
And you're
That's
probably
easy.
really lucky because you've got a nice fat pipeline to send that stuff out if you need
Do
to.
have a rather-
Yeah.
Most of
And more
the
coming?
clients I have are
Yeah.
better than DSL, but not a
Right.
lot.
So that might be one solution, and then people know like it's in Google Drive. Google Drive gives you some file history and things like it's not necessarily as friendly as something like Time Machine.
So one solution might be a hybrid that you can use is use Google Drive for for most of the company because you already have it and you're paying for it, but for the VIP, you use something like Crash Plan or an actual product. So that way you're not spending the number of licenses for the entire company, but only for a small group of people where like
need
you know.
It's got to
Yeah.
be.
And so that might be a nice medium.
I think that there's already something in place for those
For
people
them?
you described, but we've sort of been asked, what about everybody else?
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say also about the whole, like, you don't want to be the person they come after with pitchforks. when they're
That's why I want to spend money.
The
Yeah.
only
That's
way,
exactly why.
the only way in whatever 25 years I've ever had to avoid being that person is auditing. Like you have to be constantly checking your backups, no matter what you pay for. Like incredibly expensive backup systems, cake robots, they fail.
There was someone
The only
actually.
way to find out if they fail, just to try to recover files.
There was a
Yeah.
conference I went to like a few years ago, and it was someone from Google who was doing a talk on a lot of different things. But maybe you guys know him. I forget his name.
I vaguely remember this.
But he was talking about like the whole process that backing up. Like there's an entire team that's like what they do, and they it's like a service within Google where like if a division needs backing up, they'll call that particular department, and they kind of they had to verify like at random that these disks and these backup works. And I mean that gets really involved, and I'm gonna take a guess and say you're probably not as big of a department to be checking all that.
We
So
have that service for some of our more critical infrastructure.
oh well,
Right, and like
so-
I think what you're talking about
The
is
cost is not suitable to
Yeah.
deploy en masse.
right.
yeah.
I think what you're talking about is probably like for production data, like Gmail
Yes.
and things like that. There's
Right.
no one here doing that for end user workstation.
What is the
Because-
retention policy for those end users? Like, do you have to back up everything forever?
That hasn't actually come up in conversation yet. At the moment,
'Cause that
sort
also-
of evaluating options and trying to be cheap.
Yeah.
But I mean, the retention policy is gonna also
Impact,
deem
yeah.
what you're gonna use. Because if you're like, we're only gonna back up for like 30 days or a week
That's
of your
different.
changes,
Than 7
even
years.
if something dies, what's on their machine is the most important thing. Because Time Machine, when it notices that space fills up,
Yeah.
it starts
dropping
deleting the
folder.
oldest stuff that's not on your machine. So, I mean, looking at that will help decide where you can go to.
Yes.
Another alternative that if you have server shares and you want to rely on either no. Well, so much for
That's
that.
that.
Cloud. We're going to be cloud-based completely.
I think
Yeah,
you need
and
to
the
start
problem with
looking
server
at
shares-
products then, because
That's
that's
why I'm asking, like, what are everybody else
I mean,
doing?
the cloud-based finished product is Crash One.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing people, here's my credit card. I want something. That's what people go. Not very good things, or bad things.
I haven't heard too many bad things. I think the only complaint I've heard from Mac people is like
The
it's still a Java-based client, and
They're vendoring it now.
They keep saying they're going to come up with an Objective-C client, but to me, that's
If you get the enterprise,
not that valid.
the actual enterprise control panel is simple but nice. It's very easy to keep track of things. It's very easy for your admin login to say, oh, I need to, you don't even have to touch that person's machine. You say, I just need to restore this.
Right.
Do you use it now?
We use it for a couple of clients.
Okay, and you're happy with it?
For now, yes. The only thing is even though you may have this huge pipe to back something up, it is limited.
Yeah.
For what they have, because I have like designers who have like 7 terabytes of video, and so it's like been going for like 4 months, and it's at 62%, which has been a milestone.
Wow.
But
And to get it back,
I was just
you
gonna
want
say,
to
to
send
get
you a
that
drive or
back.
something.
Yeah,
they don't do that
option
anymore.
Oh, they don't?
I
They used to.
So-
I called and asked, and they said no.
There's different plans. One of the plans does.
Oh, we had asked.
There's the enterprise, and there's business, and then there's consumers. And they used to have this smart thing where they push new features to consumers first. They used to have this smart thing where there wasn't the business, but then they decided that they wanted SMB market, and so they made this blue thing. And that one, you definitely can't get your drive back. With the enterprise one, you can host it yourself. You can have your multiple destinations. You can send in between individuals, and you're controlling your cloud at that point. So
I think on
get
the
your own
consumer level,
drive
yeah,
back
they
up
do
at any
have
point.
it where you can also pipeline it to your own data storage. So if you have a SAN or something like that,
Yeah.
you can have them go in both directions.
SAN,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily. They want you to use a full-sized computer, like a full OS computer, and not like there's people who have had good experiences with QNAP NASs, with other types of NASs. You're asking for a client that's going to be out of date the moment that you spin it up, versus something that's getting updates over the air all the
One of the things that
time.
you'll get from an enterprise solution that you won't get from building your own is that you're very vulnerable in the situation where you're using Google Drive and you have some local client to back up your. Users can recover their data, but if you lose a user, somebody who quits, it's very hard for you to get their data back because they've got this Google Drive that's not on their machine. They just erase everything on it.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of controls over that. Well, something like Crash Plan, you have the backups.
There's no versioning in.
There is, and there's some way.
For like an
I think
admin,
if you're
I mean.
using, yeah, I
They
think of the
pay
whole
for
control
it.
panel and everything. There is
If
some
you're using
way.
their credit card, it's their stuff.
Right, but someone does
Yeah.
at your organization. There's some way to
Recover.
So you
throttle
can lock
that
them
and
out, but they've
recover.
already done it.
And
Yeah, I
there-
think you can still get it back.
there's also that they use their credit card. It's
This is
theirs.
the corporate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, this is a corporate
now.
setup.
Yeah.
That's no problem.
Or would that be?
Yeah, you're. It's
Trying
kind of
to get some ideas.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of tough because the only other option I would have mentioned would have been having like auto-mounted shares or network volumes if you want to go that route. But if you guys are just looking to do cloud only, I mean,
Well,
It just-
Well, I mean, Google Drive is functionally like having a mounted drive.
right. But I mean, it's not for what she wants. You want to try to automate things and get a process in place. And I mean, you could using the mechanism you described, of course, testing it out.
It's not.
Right, but
Yeah, it's a
there's
bit
no
of a-
real support for that, and so
It is.
Well, how's about SCP-R? Will that work from these machines to a destination? Do you control a destination that these clients could get to over SCP?
From the internet?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
Yeah, I know. I know what I'm saying. That
But again, that's.
because there's things that are not business class necessarily. But like anything that you look at that you're rolling your own, you have to then roll your own auth system. You have to roll your own auditing system,
Yeah.
control
Auditing
panel
system.
system. There's a lot of overhead. There's not like I can just give everybody a license of gosh darn carbon copy cloner and then they can SCP over, and then I can just cut the pipe when I want to cut the pipe. Like there's
I don't
lots of
see-
bad options.
I don't see what that gives you over using Google Drive.
right. I was gonna say
You-
that is what Lisa's talking about. The auth is solved with Google Drive. Like it's all
You know what's crazy?
I can name a few things, but what are you thinking?
This is bad. This is usually when we should stop the conversation. But the craziest thing that I had ever heard of was that Box lets you, in 2015, FTP files to their service.
Huh.
So his overhead that he's experiencing of, I'm trying to compress uncompressible data that's huge contiguous files, kind of goes away because it doesn't care, because it's just like, who wants the data? I'm going to throw it out there over the internet. Google Drive doesn't have a, hey, I'm going to mount it through other protocols. It has...
It's like Dropbox.
You're mounting it.
Yeah,
locally.
You're doing something locally.
Yeah, right.
It's not mounted. It changes and you sync.
Well, how about this? The conversation should stop.
It can only get lower.
So, and I don't know if you have any services with them, but Microsoft, right, with OneDrive and OneDrive for business.
We're a Google shop. It's not gonna happen. Sorry. But I appreciate.
Yeah, I'm just throwing out ideas, but
Hey, that's what brainstorming is about.
Right, because I know OneDrive for Business is the backbone of that is SharePoint, and there was someone that was actually trying to like hack a solution because they can't use the beta, which I thought was crazy, but that's gonna come out at some point this year, and that would have been some alternative, but that's the end of that.
I still feel
all it gives you is a different interface to your cloud, but probably better is to your cloud storage. The question is, what do you get into cloud storage, and how do you get it into cloud storage?
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, all of these Google Drive and Azure and
why not?
AWS are the same.
What if you had like some sort of launch statement?
Launch agent to make sure.
Right enough. Yeah, that's of course.
Yeah, somewhat better.
And you have it watching certain paths, and if it, through some script that detects if you got the Google Drive mounted, and that path has had some change in it, it'll start rsyncing the files over. I mean, that way you're not really dealing with Time Machine or sparse images and all that. You're sort of keeping it a little simple, and you're not constantly running things. They would only check those specific directories and copy them over.
Well, there's no insignificant overhead of rsync as well, with as often as you're trying to run it.
I think that's the other portion of this. Like, have you done any sort of study on like what you would back up? Like, I know for us here, more than any other platform used at Google, people who have Macs treat it much more like a personal machine than any other platform we have. And people will load their MP3s and their family photos and all that stuff. And like, we don't want to back it up. We don't care.
Right. With rsync, you could, which is great. I'm not sure you would be able to.
The problem with that is how do you know if it's valuable? Yeah, that's sort of the problem.
You would definitely have to exclude certain directories for sure.
Or file types or something. Yeah. But there could be people who have movies as part of their workflow. That's a valid business data.
Gee, do I do it right now?
Yeah, those people have a SAM.
Oh, okay. So they already have a backup solution.
They've got a real.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what your process is for like how you report up to someone like I've evaluated these things and here's my recommendation. But it sounds like if you have some backup solution in place already and it's working and you like it, that's what everyone gets. It seems like that's
those are costly solutions, right?
Yeah. Maybe it is, but it's a proven solution that's already in place.
So you're not backing up. What types of discussions or points did you put forth to your management teams to justify that or to make the decision?
So we're actually reevaluating this a little bit right now. But
this is not technical. Just
when we were looking at this, like I said, we evaluated a bunch of different things. We were going to go with Crash Plan. We had a pilot. We had some people using it. Yep. We were just ready to roll it out, and someone much higher pay grade than any of us said, no, we're a cloud company. You store your stuff in the cloud. No backup. Boom. And it came down from above, and it was just done.
So it was, okay.
Shut the Crash Plan servers down. Okay, done. So yeah, it wasn't much of a discussion. But when we were discussing it, if we did have to back up, it would have been Crash Plan.
Okay.
At the time, I mean, that was a few years back.
I mean-
so I don't know if it would have changed, but
Yeah, and 6 years before that, it was Carbonite, so they were one of the best games in town for Macs.
really,
That's the other.
That's what
approach
we
you
used to
can take.
Like, the thing-
recommend.
the
But
difference-
then we moved to Crash Plan.
right. But the difference between Carbonite and Mosey and Backblaze and some of those other ones, where those were like very sort of personal solutions. Crash Plan came along and said, yeah, here's a Crash Plan server, and you can back up to your own server. You don't have to back up to the cloud. And then we had, Crash Plan servers locally that replicated to each other, so you could set it up yourself. Disaster recovery included, yada yada yada. So Crash Plan came along, and yes, it's a cloud solution, but you can control it. That was.
I would say if we were asked to start that project over again, I mean, at this point, we use one commercial product. Like across the board,
Yeah.
Max, we use one commercial product,
Which might be don't loyal.
which we don't like. So it's like, I'm not sure that we would necessarily implement Crash Plan.
That's true. That's true.
We've moved pretty far away from out of the box.
Yeah, our guess would be so the
You're right.
We would
the
probably.
internal Linux team, that's a solution.
Yes.
They have
No,
publicity, we would just find something like that.
No, but I'm saying if Crash Plan had rolled out years ago,
Yeah.
we would likely still be using it.
But yeah,
And that's the other nice thing about Crash Plan is they have clients for multi-platform. But I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. But if it were me, I would be doing this like, here's this hacky way of doing it. Here's this other way of doing it. Here's what I've considered, and here's the.
Show them the pros and cons, and if you add cost, because it's not just a cost of like, okay, maybe you hack something, it's free, but what about the cost of losing that data? Because these are people.
Or spending to recover it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can necessarily attach
Or
that
guaranteeing
cost
its
to that
safety.
Because I've had that problem with the commercial solution. I mean, I've been in charge of backups where I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of my company's money on backups and could not recover anything.
They should have fired you.
But
Yeah, but
you have to have a real, like, what's the real risk of? And like honestly, my first choice in that scenario would be, can we get users to put their important data in one particular place?
Yeah.
Like that would be so easy. That would make life so great
Yeah.
if you can do that, but it's really hard.
It's really hard.
It's really
That's why I say
hard.
it's a constant user.
I mean,
education.
if that were even an option, one thing you could do is like through Casper send out like some sort of notification every day that tells them don't forget to back up.
I don't want to have them like
Yeah,
that.
that's
annoying.
Well, I mean, it's you're not
I
getting
could do that, but I don't think I'd feel good about that.
right.
And
No,
also-
I mean,
You see those notices every day.
Yeah,
you
you
just
just
start.
start-
you
Then,
start-
yeah, it's kind of like the update. I think half the customers don't see it. I walk over their computer and there's things bouncing. Acrobat Pro, it's all bouncing.
That's like we were talking about before. It's amazing at what people will just ignore and won't get their attention versus us. Like, what the hell? What's going on?
So the few times I do like put out a pop out or something like that, it's because it's important. Like I don't want to.
cause them to ignore it, ignore all notifications. Yeah,
that
I
voice?
get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Notification
Well, if you get the,
Yeah.
if you can, I haven't actually managed Google, but if you get the drive folder to be somewhere outside of the users directory, and then just make users inside the Google Drive.
Wow.
Ooh,
But then we don't have the choice of not backing up some of their stuff.
Yeah, so then that's everything, unlimited, so.
Yeah, still.
But that's a lot
alternative.
of moving parts for login.
yeah, that's.
So,
Alternatively,
Yeah.
if cost becomes a really big issue, but they're willing to look at, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sounds.
If you decide to at least look at alternatives, then just look at the cost that all the major backup enterprise services provide. And, if they're not looking to spend X amount, but they're willing to spend below that, then see, who's the best value for your money. That's pretty much all you can really do, given your circumstance.
Thank you. Appreciate the suggestions.
Yeah.
Advice. Thank you.
Don't know if it helped or not.
It-
It is a tough problem.
There is a duplicity client.
Talk it out.
Yeah,
Is parse not really now?
Very interesting. Because as I mentioned, a lot of little companies, they don't have any kind of recovery disaster plan.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have anything in place right now. Which when I heard that, I'm like, wow, that's kind of nuts. But then, after a while, I kind of adjusted. It's like maybe it's not so crazy.
Yeah. One of the last small companies I worked for, they fortunately had a second site in another state. And I just started setting up nightly, replications between the sites. And that was sort of like the off-site disaster recovery. But yeah, some small companies don't even have that. So, yeah. So in a company large or small, it's a tough problem. It's a tough problem. Unless, like I said, like CrashPlan seems to be one of these really nice, they have a solution in place. You can roll out a customized client that already ignores MP3 files and, whatever else you want to ignore or include. It does the job. It does it pretty well. You can keep bandwidth under control.
Do people even use Google Drive at your company? Like,
Very heavily.
yeah.
Excuse me, we are talking about the data, backup in data.
Mhm.
What about whole the system? Because
Who cares?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, apps.
because I just use it to Acronis image server for Windows machines or CloneZilla for Linux BSD machines.
I think,
What about Mac?
well, I think Mac is in the nice position of not having to worry about specific drivers for specific machines. Like Windows, yeah, I've created this image and it runs on this hardware, so you want to be able to do things like that. Whereas the Mac, it's like, all right, we have this one image, it works across all of our machines. You can re-image, you can get apps back.
Asterisk.
What's that?
Asterisk. Just because.
Yes, largely. Every now and then there'll be, 10.10.4 will come along and reunify everything, largely. But overall,
It works very nicely.
yeah, overall the system, that's easy to get back. You can get that back.
And you should be able to get back the apps if it's
Right.
a company.
Apps should be able to come back either through the App Store or your own internal repository installers for things maybe come through the App Store for whatever reason. But those things we don't care about. But user-generated data that is not replaceable, then yeah, we care about that.
Oh, here's another thing to think about. If your company doesn't want to spend any money on a service and they have a lot of developers, programmers,
We have some of those.
Put them to work.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's gives them a project. I'm not sure they'll be happy about the project, but I mean, they're getting paid, so, and it's just an
You
internal
guys,
cost.
You've got the experts here on these products.
Oh, they work at Google. I don't know if they work on all those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't work on Drive, but we
I
do
know
internal.
but you've got people who.
Yeah, I mean, we do internal development. And that's, I guess, why, Ed was saying, like, there's only one commercial product we use, and that might even go away. Most of the other stuff, our team has written, or other people at Google have written for one. Yeah,
There's a lot of open source projects.
and we use a lot of open source.
Okay, you guys give and take.
So I think that's been totally our preference is to use something we can read the code.
Yeah.
So together we're not meeting next month?
Does it conflict with Penn State?
I think it's that. It's
What's
like
the weekend, a week after?
So if
It's-
if it doesn't conflict, then yeah, we'll meet next month.
it's what the 6th through
6th
the,
to the 10th.
10th is the
10th.
Penn State. I didn't look at the calendar.
and I think that would fall under that might be the first Tuesday. So
Oh, so if we're the following week, then yeah, we'll still meet.
14.
Yes, for the
Yeah, so speaking of which, Penn State conference coming up. Who's going? Anybody? Oh, I remember a hand. Oh.
sadly.
Yeah, Penn State, that's a good one. I am also in the process of accepting proposals for MacTech conference, which is in November. So
how does that work from a
Please.
speaker point of view? Do you have certain costs deducted? if you speak?
you get a full conference pass that includes the evening events, that includes all your food, which is a much more major cost than expected. Conference, I didn't even think about it. A conference that I went to last week during WDC, we hit lunch and they're like, all right, see you in an hour. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot that not all conferences include lunch. That was kind of a surprise to me. So I kind of look at what we do at MacTech Conference, and Penn State for that matter, as really sort of a valuable part of the conference that
that is kind
not
of
only do you
weird.
not have to think about it, but it keeps everyone sort of immersed in what
Right,
they're doing.
and
It keeps the
networking.
conversations going. So, but yeah, if you have any ideas, please throw them my way. We'll talk about that.
You're going to MacAdmin Monthly.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
nice.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I asked them if I could, and they were kind of like, "Oh yeah, we were actually pretty good." By the time I asked, at least. But yeah, I needed to. It was a bit up my alley to see a whole bunch of people that make the Puppet modules I'm going to use. That like vFuse being ready on day one for 10.11 was kind of nice, and Chillcode's going to talk about that.
Oh, cool.
So I'm super looking forward to that. The wife wanted to fly out to me to see Vancouver, and we didn't have enough miles. It was $850 for the plane.
Huh.
I got it.
Yeah, I got it last week. So,
Wow.
Hence why you're not speaking, because you were late.
I'm a little on the late side. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun.
I have one last quick question that's relevant.
Go.
Did anything change in? Did they add any additional functionality with profiles in OS 10, 11?
10.11.
I haven't looked.
Well, I mean,
Don't
they
know.
demoed specific changes to profiles.
They
No,
did.
I haven't gotten a chance to.
Right. I mean, so
But there is additional functionalities like things they've added.
I don't think it's a new workflow for admins assessing the operating system that care about profile-based management to take a spin on the proof of concept MDM that is Profile Manager. I downloaded the server. I just need to get my stuff together to get it up and running, and it's very lightweight to do so. And then download, turn on all options, download, inspect. It's XML all the way down, but
Okay.
there's going to be new functionality in there, and not
they
just
did
to
mention something, but I haven't dug into it.
All right.
modify settings.
Cool. Watch the videos.
I so many other things.
That was a highly edited video after the fact.
Oh yeah.
That was a somewhat like sometimes it's just like they can't go back to slides and like that. But
Oh.
this one it was. And now we're going to try this again. Is where the video picks back up.
Interesting. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Wrap it up here and see everyone next month.